If we approve this, we're violating procurement laws, correct? Yes?
Yes, sir.
My name is Basilio de Villarreal.
For the first time in Starr County, the incumbents are coming to speak directly to the people. Today with me, we have Basilio Villarreal. Say hello, sir.
Hello.
And what I'd like to do is just talk about what's going on in the school board.
First of all, let me say thank you for having me here today. I think this is a great opportunity for the general public to really find out what's really going on in our schools. Let me begin with, simply put, first of all, my name is Basilio de Villarreal. I'm coming to you as a citizen and a member of the school board. What I would like to talk to you about initially was schools. At the end of the day, the only thing that's really the most important thing that we have is our children. Everything should revolve around what is best for our children. And in saying that, I would say that teachers, the kid, the parents getting what they need and they deserve. Well, the problem we have today is that over the last couple of years, we have been having deficit, not necessarily spending, but deficit budgets. 2 years ago, we were approximately anywhere between $10 to $12 million in a deficit. Last year's budget was another $8 to $10 million in the red.
So what you're telling me is that the school owed money.
We were spending more money than we were getting.
We have a budget deficit of $9.9 million.
Okay, so this is money that you had available, but you were spending more than was coming in.
Exactly. And you can compare it to a boat that basically you have in the sea and it's taking more water than you're dishing out. Eventually the boat's going to go down. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm talking about. The fact of the matter is that in the last couple of years, we've been having deficit spending. What we really need to realize is that the only thing that has kept our school district kind of afloat is that we sued every single school ever built in Rio Grande City. And the school district made millions and millions and millions of dollars off these construction lawsuits. And by the way, we had attorneys making millions of dollars off these lawsuits also.
And I appreciate you having shared that information because I had no idea how much it was until you did that.
Yes. The fact of the matter is that we made tens of millions of dollars. The attorneys made tens of millions of dollars off lawsuits, and the school made tens of millions of dollars off lawsuits. But if you were to take that lawsuit money out of the equation, we'd be in harm's way. And at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is that every single school, like I said, that got built got sued. The problem we have with that is that as we move forward, when we're going to have to build a brand new school, who is going to want to build a school for RGCCISD, knowing that every single contractor or most every contractor got sued? The fact of the matter is that the attorneys, what we need to realize, made probably around 45% of all that money, and the school kept 55% of that money. So surely the school did well, but let's be honest, the attorneys did pretty damn well also.
Who in their right mind makes a lawsuit a part of their business plan or business management to begin with? I mean, that to me sounds ridiculous.
Well, the problem we had there for a little while is that even the lawsuit monies were being considered to be part of our budget. The sad part in all of this is that very little or no money has been designated to fix these schools. School has gotten tens of millions of dollars of lawsuits, but ask me, how much of that money has been put back into our schools to fix them? Take the La Grulla School District or any other school districts. How much money? Little or if any. So at the end of the day, what we've actually done is instead of repairing the schools that according to the people are bad, we went out there and put it in our budget. Well, maybe there are some defects in these schools that need to be repaired. But the fact of the matter, we haven't taken an importance to fix these schools. And like I said, my premise was at the beginning, we should always do what's best for the kids. If there's something wrong with the schools, we need to go out there and repair them.
So you mean to tell me that they went out, they sued, they got the money, and then they put it back into regular business operation monies?
Well, they left it, let me put it to you, designated but never spent it. Let me put it that way. Very little or no money has been spent on repairing the schools, even though the schools have made millions, tens of millions of dollars off lawsuits, and we haven't spent tens of millions of dollars on repairing. When schools got sued, they talked about air conditioning, they talked about foundations, they talked about roofs, they talked about many a thing. The fact of the matter is that when we got in there, the first thing we did was we tried to take care of all the air conditioning problems that were in the east side, the La Grulla area. The fact of the matter, we did that. The schools, the air conditioners are much better in that area. But we have a long ways to go. We have tens of millions of dollars, but the fact of the matter, we haven't spent them. And the fact of the matter, do we have that money still available? Yeah, maybe some of it, but do we have all of it? No, absolutely.
So why did they sue in the first place if it wasn't to fix it? I don't understand that.
Well, that's the catch-22. We sued to get a lot of money, and yet we didn't fix these schools. So I don't know. This is the environment which our kids use to learn.
I look at some of the stuff that's going on in Roma, and I put it on a little timeline, right? And it becomes more evident with the drainage. When Fernando comes in, sometimes they lean towards it and they make it important, and then when they're not in power, it's like they forget about it for a couple of years. Do you think that the board in Rio has been waiting to be in control in order to start spending this money?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think that anybody's in control. I think that they've been using this money to get by. What do I mean? They say, we have the biggest fund balance ever in the RGCCISD. And that may be a fact. But what they don't tell you is that we have a $10, $12 million deficit in that budget. So do we really have what they say? And I go to the analogy again. More water comes into the boat than you're taking out. Eventually, that boat's going to go down into the bottom.
From your experience, and you've got a lot of experience, how much time before that deficit really begins to bother the books?
Well, the fact of the matter is that in the next couple of years, it's going to start hitting. We've run out of schools to sue. We've sued every single school. They just settled the last one. There's no more schools to sue. So there's no more money coming in. Now we're going to have to be able to work within our budgets. But getting back to budget, how can we think that we are doing a good job in protecting the funds of the general public? Let me give you an example. We went out there and we have portable buildings all over the schools. And since we built all these new schools, we don't need them. Instead of going out there and selling them on site and getting whatever the bids were on these buildings in public auction, instead of putting a minimum bid, what these people did, or our school district did, we moved all our buildings, all the portable buildings, to the maintenance department, to the tune of over $100,000, between $100,000 and $120,000. And then we turn around and sell them at auction for $30-some thousand. Well, we took between an $80,000 and $90,000 hit. But the fact of the matter is this, and let me preface this. This happened before we got in there. This happened approximately a year and a half ago. But the sad part about it, on these buildings, is that public law tells you that you have to put out everything to bid, either to bid or RFQs, requests for proposals. And in order to pay $120 or $110 or $100,000 to move these portable buildings, they need to have put them out to bid. Did the RGCCISD put them out to bid? I've been told they haven't. And I challenge anybody to bring to us and show us where they were to put out to bid. And if they didn't put them out to bid, we violated the law.
For item 11, you have the attached pages 65 to 72 that have any requisitions that exceed a limit of 5,000, and they all have proper funding. I don't know if y'all have any questions.
I have a question, Chris. I saw this one. Correct me if I'm wrong, procurement law requires that any time you bid or you purchase over $50,000, it has to go out to bid, correct?
Yes.
Unless you're sole source or your what's the other word? When you give by board,
By
correct?
board approved.
Yeah, by board approved.
Or through a corporate.
So if you look at the first item,
Okay.
it's 43,500, correct?
Yes, dependable air?
And if you go fifth from the bottom, it's 13,000, correct?
Yes,
And if
13.3.
you add both of those up, it's 56,000, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if we approve this, we're violating procurement laws, correct? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me get this straight. They spent to sell them $100,000.
Over $100,000.
Over $100,000 just to try to sell them. And they've only, the extent of what they brought back was 30,000.
30-some thousand.
30-some thousand. Who did this?
Well, who did it? Well, that's $1 million question. Was it approved by the board? Was it approved by the superintendent? Somebody did it, but the fact of the matter is, why didn't they just sell them on site? Why do we have to move them all the way to the maintenance department? How come we can't just sell them where they are with a starting bid of whatever?
Because rats, because business, because
I'm not going to go there about that, but all I'm telling you, from a business perspective, it makes absolutely zero sense.
from the people's perspective, what I've heard is everybody's in on it.
Well, the only thing I say, again, what I'm saying, why do we have a deficit? Well, if this is an example of what was going on, what are the things are there that we haven't seen?
And you're in there. You're part of the board. You're watching these things happen. What's going on through your mind? Are you just thinking, go ahead, I can't stop you, do it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to get you for it?
Well, we need to understand this happened before our time. It did not happen during our time. And this happened, I guess, a year and a half, 2 years, before we even got in there. And the fact of the matter is that instead of spending $100,000 or $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, why don't we spend them on kids? Why don't we spend them on libraries? Why don't we spend them on helping kids on tutorials? Do you realize that this year, and I like to toot our horn, we went out there and we instituted tutorials back again and intense tutorials. And I can proudly say today that we, teachers, parents, everybody, all the community, we raised the scores on the test, on the Starr testing by approximately 425 percentage points.
Damn, that's good.
And last time, we had a grade of a 77, which was a C. We were either 36 or 37 in our region. I guarantee one thing. When the grades come out this time, we're not going to be 36 or 37. We did tremendous improvements because we took that money and we invested it in children. But like I say again, how about that 80 or 90 or 100,000? How come we can't take that money we lost and put it into children?
The schools are for the children. They're not for the truck drivers to be moving stuff around, making money when times are slow. You've got a decline in the books. And all I hear coming from what I call the other side is that everything that they're doing is for the kids.
The question is simply this. For 4 years, our employees were given stipends and then taken away at the end of the year. Given stipends and taken at the end of the year.
What's a stipend?
A stipend is, for example, I make $40,000 as a teacher, 42, 43. I'm going to give you a stipend of $1,000. But at the end of the year, I take it back and you're back at 42. This year, which was last year, they finally gave a raise of, I think, approximately $1,200. The fact of the matter, we have not had raises for our whole raises. We've only had one raise in the last 4 years. I can honestly say that before we left, we gave a $4,000 raise to teachers and a $2,000 to paraprofessionals, and we got criticized. But when you have people going out there and losing $80,000 to $100,000 for moving portable buildings, it just doesn't make sense.
You get crickets. So they gave the stipends, they took them back. What
is so wrong with it? And follow what I'm about to tell you. What's so wrong about a stipend is that a stipend is something they give you and then they take it away. It doesn't go into your retirement. It doesn't go into anything. So if you follow what I'm about to tell you is, simply put, you get a $1,000 increase for 4 years. The first year you make 41, the second year 42, the third year 43, and the fourth year you make 44. So at the end of the day, you've made 4,000, 3,000, 7 and 2 is 9 and 1 is 10. That's $10,000. But if I give you a stipend for 4 years, basically all you've gotten is $4,000. You've lost out on $6,000 plus all your retirement.
Okay, so in the long run, that's basically what a school wants to do is they want to attract teachers that are good to stick around for the long run. This kind of game of giving and taking would deter me from wanting to be there for very long and look for more stability.
Exactly.
I take a look at what happened in March and throughout May. And one of the biggest things that stood out for me was why they would go from a superintendent that was at a reasonable salary, and then they went to a salary that reflects something of a much larger student base.
Okay, and let me begin by saying simply this. We had a superintendent that was working for $120,000 plus whatever the penalties were, which was $130,000. The board decided to go a different route and hire a new superintendent, even though the old superintendent picked up the scores, like I said earlier, by 425 percentage points. Well, here goes the $1 million question to everybody. In the contract, they've basically, simply put as an average, increased the superintendent's salary by 10%. So I think the first year is 200,000, second year is 220, and the third year is 235, give or take. So I'm going to ask the simple question to the board that's here is, are you going to give teachers a 10% raise? Answer that.
Well, hopefully we can get somebody to sit down with me because I'm willing to sit down with them, ask them a few other questions.
But the fact of the matter is, more or less give or take a 10% raise. So are we going to give teachers a $4,000 raise? Are we going to give administrators an $8,000 to $10,000 raise?
Are they going to take it away at the end of the year?
Well, the thing I always say is one simple thing. You lead by example. And the fact of the matter is the superintendent we had before, like I said, was working for approximately 120 plus the penalties, which is 130 some. He had a 425% increase in the Starr exam. At the end of the day, aren't we here for the children?
Out of all these things that are happening, right, it's mostly just we hear talk about the business aspect. How did you see it affecting the students themselves where you were like just thinking, man, I wish things were different because these things that are affecting the kids are irritating me? Like the ACs, for example, that had to have bothered the hell out of you.
Well, when we went in there, that was one of their prime things to take care of because they came out in the news, they came out on TV about those ACs in La Grue, and they took care of them. The main purpose of our schools is to educate kids. And when I say educate kids, it's not only to become doctors, lawyers, teachers. It's about becoming a good welder, a good carpenter, a good plumber. It's about the whole thing where kids can learn how to write, read, and do arithmetic properly. So at the end of the day, our emphasis and our money should be spent on how to educate children, basically. And surely extracurricular activities are important. But I'll take an example. La Grulla band. They were marching in the dark for months.
Why?
Because they would never fix up the lights.
Why?
That's $1 million question. I say, I don't know why. Our money should be totally, and surely, everything that has to do with children, whether it's the idea of getting good teachers, getting good principals, getting good bus drivers, getting good cafeteria employees, getting good people that clean the rooms. It's about the whole show. And that's what it's about.
You mean to tell me that we have to choose between giving the kids free stuff like Dr. B's talking about, all the kids are going to get free stuff versus lights at night for marching?
I'm going to say the truth. When somebody wants to give something, to me, more power to them. The only thing I'm trying to say is we have to be at that school to provide for the necessities of children to educate them. Whether it is tutorials, whether it is to get small class sizes, to help the kids that are struggling, to help the migrants. We're there to make sure that kids are successful.
As a parent, as a father, I'd rather buy the school supplies and have my child see at night when she's marching in band.
Well, and that's only one example. You could go to multiple examples of things. It's like, for example, now that we're on it, we go out there and we get into an energy efficiency program that costs the district $7.129 million. That energy efficiency program was paid through what we call money from the budget. And what do I mean by that? They went out there and got a loan and committed monies from the maintenance and operation, from basically the monies we use to pay teachers and pay janitors and pay principals.
They borrowed against that.
They borrowed against it.
We just spent $7 million.
The sad part about it is we went out there and got $7.129 million. If you do the mathematics, they say that we're going to have a savings, they say, of $500,000.
Are we talking solar panels? Are we talking about windmills?
No, we're just talking about putting air conditioning units, lighting, and things of that nature.
Get out of you mean that stupid little sticker that says it's energy efficient? Energy efficient.
Well, here comes the trick to the thing, or the thing that I don't understand. If you figure it out, it's going to take us approximately 14 to 15 years to pay for the energy efficiency. But that's not even the point. The point is that after 10 years, all that equipment we put in there, all the ACs are outdated and are going to be replaced again to the tune of, in today's day, dollars of $4 million. 10 years from now, it could be 6 or 8. So basically, that program is not going to be paying for itself till probably year 2021, 22. How could that be a good investment?
Okay, this is the second time that I hear this ridiculous business going on here. You got $7.1 million to save $500,000 a year. So that's going to take 14 years, but the equipment has a lifespan of 10 years, which means you're going to have to go back and buy it again. That doesn't make sense. And we have on the board, lawyers, we got a doctor. How does a person even look at this and say, oh yeah, this looks like a good plan?
We just spent $7 million.
Well, in me questioning the individual about the energy efficiency, he went out there and said at the end, it's not energy efficiency, it's energy equipment replacement. How do you go and spend that kind of money and it makes no sense. It's like football fields. Well, Rio Grande now has a artificial turf. We have artificial turfs for La Grulla, artificial turfs for Rio Grande practice field, and we have our main stadium. Because they say that we're going to go out there and save on all the labor and we're going to save in all the water. But the fact of the matter is that the life expectancy of those turfs are approximately 10 years. And in 10 years, they're going to have to go spend another $600,000 to $800,000 to replace them. So what have we saved? We had one of the prettiest grass fields in the country. And what did? We went out there and put a grader and knocked it out. Instead of going out there and rolling the grass and putting them on baseball fields, soccer fields, we just tore it up and we put a artificial turf that how often is it used? We spent millions of dollars on turf in our stadium. How about spending millions of dollars on educating our children? How about spending millions of dollars on trying to go out there and making sure that our kids are successful?
But I'm still stuck on the energy efficiency plan. How many of those units actually needed to get replaced?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. How many of those units got replaced?
Because I see them using this as an excuse to say, hey, let's replace everything.
Well, here comes the other kicker to all this stuff. I know that they got all those units, took them down, and I'm not saying all of them got sold, but a good majority got sold. We had working units that got sold. How much did they get sold for?
But they were working.
Exactly.
Why would they do that?
$7.129 million.
That's why. That's exactly why they did it. And now they did it to the turf. I don't think that artificial grass competes with the real thing.
Well, the problem is this, and here we go again. We spent money on an artificial turf. Yeah, it looks good. But the turf we had looked fantastic. If you're going to go out there with the idea that the artificial turf is going to save you money, it isn't, because the life expectancy is 10 years. In 10 years, you're going to have to put another $600,000 to $800,000. That's $60,000 to $80,000 a year that you're going to have to spend on replacing it. But my simple question is, how do you just go in there and destroy all the grass? Why didn't you roll it up and put it in the baseball field and soccer field? Why?
I keep getting asked about a swimming pool.
Swimming pool. That's the reason I laugh, folks, is simply put, that swimming pool already cost us $200,000 to $300,000. I don't even remember. And in order to complete it, it's going to cost us another $100,000. Some people took some estimates of the old swimming pool that we had, and they gave us estimates of between $60,000 to $100,000 to fix it.
So it hasn't been finished.
No, and it needs another $100,000. And for me per se, I am only one person. I will not, in any form or fashion, and listen to me, I will not, in any form or fashion, ever vote to go out there and approve anything to do with that swimming pool, because it's one of the biggest eyesores we have in front of the historical Fort Ringgold. We had a swimming pool that we could have fixed for $100,000, $120,000.
Oh,
go spend it.
That's $300,000-$400,000 that they blew off the top, and they haven't even finished it yet.
Exactly. But the question I'm saying is this. How in God's green earth do you put a swimming pool next to the historical Fort Ringgold? Let me give you an example. I have a business, and I'm not going to mention it, but I see car chases going 100-plus miles maybe once or twice a year. I've seen people get heart attacks and crash into it. Why would you want to put a swimming pool where there's a lot of traffic? What if there's a car chase and the guy loses control and goes and hits that swimming pool?
How close is this thing to the street?
It's next to the highway. Highway 83.
Get out of town.
Yes, sir.
Wow. No wonder people keep asking about it. So we've got this swimming pool, we got the turf, we've got this energy efficient stuff, and it's just money going down the drain, and it's taxpayer money. I see this happening. I see them getting out one way or another, slowly but surely. People have caught on, and they're catching on. Are all of these problems going to fall onto the lap of the people that come in, and will they try to blame them for these fix-up expenses or whatnot?
Well, at the end of the day, and I'll be frank with you, I don't really care about blame. All I care is about how can we make our school district a better place for our children? How can we make wise decisions to go out there and improve educational values? I will ask somebody point blank, how does putting a turf, putting a swimming pool, how does that increase the educational value of our kids? Don't get me wrong, it's nice. But at the end of the day, if you're running those type of deficits, which I mentioned, tens of millions of dollars, how can we be investing in things like turf? If we have tens of millions of dollars of deficits in our budget. How can we think that a swimming pool is a priority? How can we think a turf is a priority? You know what's a priority? Air conditioning. You know what's a priority? Tutorials. You know what's a priority? What's best for the children. That's what's a priority.
Teacher salaries, but you've got a sentence of that 7 point whatever loan that they took out. That's going to be looming over the head of whoever is managing the school board. They already did the damage. And now the new guys that come in, they're going to have to face this problem too.
Well, I don't know how much, at the end of the day, it's up to the voters of our area. At the end of the day, the only thing that, like I say again, is that we need to focus on what's most important. We need to focus on our children. We need to focus on our parents. We need to focus on the whole RGCCISD staff. To say that our teachers now, our starting teachers pay in RGCC is one of the lowest in the whole valley is ridiculous. We used to be among the best of the best as far as salaries are concerned. We're one of the worst. And at the end of the day, I learned long time ago that, simply put, you're only as good as the staff you have under you. And what I mean by that, you have to give proper compensation so our employees from top to bottom can be motivated to do what is best for our children of our district.
As I'm looking down into the future, we got a board that's there. How are they going to operate? Where does the money come from? How does a process work? How does a school get the money? How are they going to tackle this deficit? Just think about me as a layman. I don't know what I'm talking about, and explain it to me like if I'm a 5-year-old child.
Okay. First of all, if you're a 5-year-old child, let me bring an ice cream cone to you. But in all sense, funding from a school is quite simple. Funding from a school comes from different sources. The majority of school funding comes from the state of Texas, it's a little bit from taxes, and from the federal government. And the way that budgets are done is basically you find out how much money is coming in, and then you find out how much money is going out. And what I mean coming in, how much you're going to get from the federal government, from the state government, from taxes and maybe special programs, and how much you're going to spend on salaries, on supplies, and things of that nature. That is really what it is about.
Okay.
Okay.
If you could break it down, like how, ballpark percentages, how much percentage is taxes versus state versus federal?
I'm thinking that taxation brings about 25% of the revenue into our school, and 75% is brought in by the rest of the people, simply put.
So you're talking about local taxes representing 25%. You've got the state
and the federal government.
And the federal. Are there requirements that we have to meet to get the state and federal?
And the state, no, not really. The way it works is the state is really the number of children you have. And the federal, they do give you monies, but it is designated for special ed, designated for migrants. That's a little bit more obligated. But the way it works is, and I'm not saying 25. I'm going to give 20, give or take 20-some% of the federal. But the fact of the matter is that the majority of the money comes from the state, the federal government, and we locally here put a little bit of that money. And the fact of the matter is that they give, I'm thinking, about anywhere between $7,500 to $9,500 per student. But I'm not too sure, but it's in that range somewhere.
So it's directly related to the number of students, and there's a decline in the number of students?
Our district has been suffering from a decline a little bit in population. Obviously, we have another private school in our district, and they have been taking kids not only from Rio Grande, but from Roma. We, as a district, need to be one of the best academic districts so we can make sure that we as RGCCISD family can continue forward. Because at the end of the day, I tell a lot of people, going to school is not only about education, it's about socializing. And what I'm saying is that in Rio Grande City, CISD, you get the opportunity to go to one-act plays, you get the opportunity to play in the band, you get the opportunity to go wrestling, you get the opportunity to go play tennis, football, and you get the opportunity of so many things. And to be frank with you, in a private school, they do have a few of things, but we in the RGCCISD family have a lot more extracurricular activities to one-act plays to give our children of our district.
So they get to socialize more, and yeah, you have to be competitive. It's one of those deals.
Is a kid getting educated? We can talk about the kids this and the kids that, but are we doing a good job on educating kids? And I'm telling you right now, when you get a grade of 77 and you're 36, 37 out of 43, we weren't doing a good job. I guarantee you one thing: this year, when the ratings come out, we're going to have tremendous increases. And that's really what it's about. Well, my folks, I'm going to be honest with you. My father used to say one simple thing, and I referred to my old man and said, son, he said, I can give you $3 or $4 million, and guess what? In 4 or 5 years, you're going to spend them. If I give you a great education, that's for a lifetime. That's just going to stay with you for the rest of your life. So I choose an education.
What was the first year that you were a school board member?
That's a long time. I think that's when snakes used to fly. They don't fly anymore, so it's been a long time.
A ballpark decade.
It's been about 20 plus years, I would imagine.
Okay, 20 plus years. That would put it around the 90 something.
I would imagine. I'm not going to say, but it's been a long time.
I've known a lot of people from Rio Grande City. I've known a lot of people that have kids in Rio Grande City, and I've never heard them complain this much about the school.
Well, the fact of the matter is simply, like we said again, we need to put the focus back on our children, whether it's education, whether it's tutorials, whether it's UIL. We need to put, for example, getting back, and something just came into my mind. Many years ago, we had a system of buying buses. Every year, we would buy anywhere between 5 and 7 buses. What do you mean by that? Well, every year, so at the end of one year, 5 to 7 buses, and next year, 5 to 7 buses. So our fleet would stay new.
Right.
Ask me how many buses passenger buses, we've bought in the last 4 years.
How many?
Probably, and I'm not talking special needs. I'm talking buses to probably 2 or 3, maybe 4, 2, 3, 4 buses.
So that's a bubble. I look at that and I see a bubble.
It's going to bust. The fact of the matter is, those are the things I'm talking about. Whether it be busing, we keep our fleet up, or air conditionings. Did we even have a crew that go out there and replace filters, do maintenance?
Right.
And do you realize that in those air conditioners that were repaired, there was no maintenance from let's say Honeywell? There's a maintenance. It's like a car. If you go out there and buy a brand new car and you never change the oil, guess what? 40, 50,000, you're going to have to buy a new car.
Right.
You have to have a maintenance program in everything, and we weren't doing that.
We're looking at a time when at some point you're going to have a lot of buses need to be replaced at the same time. So instead of replacing them 5 or 6 at a time over the year, you're going to need to do 30, 40 buses all in one shot.
So here's the $1 million question. Well, should we have bought a fleet of buses for the $7.129 million or energy efficiency? Here's the question. Should we have needed artificial turfs? Or do we need new buses?
No, well, my question is, why did they break the machine? Because for so many years, you guys had a system that was working, that was operating, that you weren't creating bubbles.
Here comes the problem. The problem is we have no money, correct? But we have money for turfs. We have money for air conditioners.
They were
we
saying
have money
that we didn't have money
to move portable buildings, but we have no money. Well, something doesn't make sense.
No, their whole way of doing business doesn't make sense. The whole borrowing against the general, they're borrowing against teacher salaries.
Thank you.
And no, that's wrong too. They're not focusing on the machine that is this educational institution, and they seem to be focusing in on opportunities to bring in money for their own pockets. I can say that.
Well, I'm not going to say that.
Right.
The only thing that I have, sometimes people will say that construction lawsuits are good. And maybe they are, and maybe they're not.
I don't see them that way.
But I will say this much. When the lawyers are making 45% of that money, and local attorneys are making over $2.something million.
And how are they choosing these firms?
Well, that's the $1 million question. How did they choose these firms? We have many attorneys in our area. The simple way is, if you're going to choose attorneys, the question I'm saying, if you have 10, 12 attorneys, why can't you give everybody an opportunity instead of giving the same people over and over again? At the end of the day, yes, we got 55% of the money or 50% of the money. Yeah, we did. But the attorneys, the attorneys the whole attorney got 40, 45% of the money. The school got 50, 55. So who made out well?
At some point, somebody's got to say, hey, okay, you got 20 lawyers. Out of the 20 lawyers, who can do the job and contribute more by lowering their cost? I understand there's costs associated, but you've got how many attorneys right now just defending guys on a personal level? I don't see them rallying up saying, hey, us as the law community, we're going to defend the school in this defect case, and we're going to charge 10%.
Well, here comes the question again. And I'm going to go to local counsel, which they hire. My question is simply put, why can't you say, well, let's go through 1 through 4. Let's go to 4 through 8. let's go 8 through 12 and give everybody, let me give you an example. A while back, we got some bonds money from the state to build schools. And what we basically did back then, we gave every single bank in our basically school district, we deposited money in every single bank because at the end, we wanted to help every bank.
You're talking about like a rotation system.
Right.
with
Well,
the
not
lawyers.
rotate. And my question is simple. For attorneys, and again, well, why don't you help all the attorneys? And I think at the end of the day, these attorneys have made fortunes, local and people from Houston. But then the question is saying, what have they given back to our district?
We got somebody from Houston, not somebody from around here, not somebody that's here contributing to the community, making 20% at least, give or take. I don't know how much these guys are splitting the take on that 45%, but they're not from around here.
Well, the fact of the matter, the people from Houston are taking the bulk of the money. The local attorneys are taking some of that money, but the people from over there are taking the bulk. But this is the interesting part. When you take all the lawsuits together, and I can tell you the locals make a little bit of the money, and they made probably, when everything's said and done, they're going to make in the excess of $2 million, all the local attorneys. How much did the guy from Houston take, right?
Well, I'm salivating like a wolf looking at a lamb. I want to get my hands on these defects cases, take a look inside, just to see how much work the local council put in. Because from what I've seen in the appeals cases that I've seen, they didn't really do much or say much.
Well, here's the other part. You know, the legislature did something, the state legislature did something very interesting. The law changed because all these construction lawsuits were popping all over the state of Texas. So what they did, they basically went out there. Now the law says that if you go sue for construction, that money has to go to fix schools. You can't put it in your general budget.
What did that change?
It changed like about a year or two ago. So that new high school, the Rio Grande High School, that money has to be designated to repair that school. The other money could have been put into the budget, not anymore according to the state.
Well, that's kind of what it was for, and it goes back to what you were talking about, that you're working with a deficit, and you're not going to have more construction money coming in. Where the teacher salary is going to come from?
Well, that's where everything is going to be at, you know. What are we going to do as a district, you know? The fact of the matter is that, and I tell a lot of people, it's real simple. If you need to start reducing personnel, do it through attrition. As people get out, don't hire anybody. But the fact of the matter is, when you were spending millions and millions of dollars on energy efficiency, turfs, and all that stuff, it makes you wonder where the priorities are.
Okay, I keep telling people that I'm a layman. What is attrition?
Attrition means that if somebody gets out, for example, you had a teacher that left, you don't hire another teacher. You have a person who leaves, you don't hire that person back.
So they're not going to be able to dump more of the construction case money into the general account. They got to forcefully do construction and go back and fix the schools. What does the budget look like for next year now that they can't factor that in?
Well, let me go back. All the schools except the, I think, Rio Grande City School, that money has to be for construction. The rest of the money can be put in the general fund. The fact is that over the last 2 years, we've been running deficit budgets. The fact we've had more money spent that was coming in. And you say, how much money are we talking about? We're talking about deficit spending to the tune of $10-12 million every year. In 2 years, probably between $18 and $22 million. So at the end of the day, we are spending more money that is coming into our district.
Who does that? Why would anybody do that? I make money, I budget around it, I have so much credit that I can tap into, right? But why would I put myself into a plan that self-sabotages my finances? Why would they do it to the school?
Well, at the end of the day, they had this, call it a mirage illusion, that the lawsuit money, and it's true, it was bailing them out. But we don't have any more lawsuit money coming in. Now we're going to have to work with the real budget. We have, how can I put it? We have not been prudent in our budgets of how we should do it. And what I mean by that is simply put, if we ran a $8 to $10, $12 million deficit last year and another $10 to $12 million deficit the year before that, why are we building artificial turfs? Why are we making swimming pools? Why are we doing energy efficiency? Why? And that's the bottom line. And if you look at that mentality, I can understand why we're at where we're at.
And the way I look at it, you're going to have to be the guys that go back and tell your kids, using the analogy of the home, you're going to be the guy that tells your kids, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut off the internet. I'm going to have to shut the phone down. I'm going to have to cut expenditures because now we've gone over the budget. I'm not making that much money. Nobody likes that guy.
Well, here's the question that's going to happen. Are we going to be able to salvage the budget in this coming year? In other words, what I'm trying to say, are we going to make the necessary reductions in our budget, or are we going to go crash? And what do I mean, are we going to go crash? Are we going to go to and just leave it that way till eventually we run out of money and we're going to have massive layoffs?
So the budget hasn't been made yet?
No, it has not.
When does that happen?
It should happen. We should have a working budget, I believe, in the next couple of months, I believe. The budget is usually per school year. So what I'm basically saying, our fiscal budget runs from September 1st to August 31st. So we should have a budget hopefully here in the next few days, not a few weeks, I'm sorry.
So within the next few weeks, we're going to catch a whiff of what we're looking at down the pipe, whether it's going to be something that adds to the problem or something that takes away from the problem.
Exactly.
And how intricate is the mathematics behind these budgets?
It's not rocket science. It's like you. For example, if you're making, $25,000, $30,000, are you going to go buy yourself a Mercedes-Benz? Absolutely not, right?
No,
So,
yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, simply put, if you have the money, fine. If you don't, you don't. And the fact of the matter is that's what we keep talking about, is that if we're running a deficit budget, we need to be prudent. And all the money we have, we need to devote it to the educating of our children, and to the facilities that educate our children, and to all the personnel, all the family, I call it the RGCCISD family, that contribute to the education. And everything comes second. Everything takes a back seat to that.
I'm starting to get this picture in my mind of these lavish lifestyles that some of these people are living and the effect that it's having directly to the school board. What do you think about that?
I just say one thing and one thing only. I just take to the children and educating kids, and that is just do the right thing. And when I say that, go out there and your air conditioners are broken, fix them up. If kids need tutorials, give them tutorials. If kids need UIL, go help them with the UIL. If at the end of the day, and don't get me wrong, I think there's a place for football, basketball, my favorite sport, baseball, one-act plays. There definitely is. But let's just not forget our priority. Well, basically, if somebody's being charged $180,000 in materials and $125,000 or $130,000 in labor, it just doesn't seem right for HVAC. I mean, it just doesn't seem right.
Excuse me, sir, you do realize that the part of this agreement was that anything that we spent, we were going to get back in savings. So all of the money that you're saying that we expended, we've been guaranteed by the company that we would get that back. So that was the investment. That's why this was such a great plan. But yes, it was over $2 million, but we were guaranteed to make that back in savings over the program. And I would love to hear from you, sir. Thank you. Can you please come and let us all know a little bit about your program a little bit more? We just spent $7 million.
Hello guys, how you doing? My name is Paul Cuellar. I was the construction project manager for this project.
Good evening, sir.
And we're pretty much, we started back in early February, and we continue. We did the lighting for all the elementaries, middle schools, and middle schools actually. And we did the lighting, HVAC, and also did some controls on some special six campuses, and we did an energy conservation to make sure we can save you the money that we did on the contract that we stated.
We just spent $7 million.
And basically, we were completed by mid-November, and we've just been finalizing, taking care of all the little items, the little details. They need to fine tune here and there, but overall, we pretty much completed the project already.
We just spent $7 million.
So you say, sir, that
So you say that you put controls in a lot of the chillers and HVACs in our district?
We only had 6 campuses that we got awarded.
Okay, you got 6 campuses, and you say they're working properly right now as we speak?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Garza is in charge of air conditioning. Are the controls working properly, Mr. Garza?
We just spent $7 million.
So you're having issues with controls. Have you notified this company?
We just spent $7 million.
I was not aware that we were having control issues.
Well, let me ask another question, sir.
Sure.
How is it that you spend, let's say, $200,000 in HVAC and you charge $140,000 in labor? I just, those.
I don't, as far as the numbers in that sense,
Yeah.
my part was just construction.
We just spent $7 million.
Part of it, I just got a notice that we had a meeting
Okay.
this
So
afternoon.
let me ask you a question. In this project, the school district paid $121,000 for the bond. The school district paid $206,000 for the design. The school district paid performance and management setup. What is that? $65,000.
We just spent $7 million.
What's that about?
Again, I'm just a construction project manager on the other part, Leo, and the dollars on it. I'm not too familiar with that.
Ms. Robles, let me ask you a question. Have you done an analysis of the first 3 months of how much energy we've saved in comparison to 3 months prior?
We just spent $7 million.
The true actual savings, as recommended by Mr. Bill Severino, we will not be seeing the true actual savings until we complete 1 year after the completion of the project.
So you think that we're going to save $7 million in how long? Sir, could I ask?
Whatever the contract was stated at, whatever the performance management stated, how many years it was going to take to get that savings.
So you're saying I guess the contract was 10 years, 12 years, 10 years, I guess. So you're saying we're going to see $7 million in savings over a 10-year period?
Again, we need to re-stress on the savings on it, since there's been quite a few changes on the HVAC equipment.
We just spent $7 million.
So again, let me just ask real quickly, and that just has me miffed. We have here HVAC at $260,000 at Veterans Middle School, and yet we have labor at $175,000. What is the price of a chiller these days?
We just spent $7 million.
It all depends on what we want to put in there, because it's not just consists of the chiller, it all consists of the controls. It consists of a lot of mechanical equipment that consists to make all the goods and parts work properly.
We just spent $7 million.
Item 13, consider and take possible action on incentive stipend for all full-time employees.
Mr. President,
motion to approve
I make a
$1,500
motion,
stipend
Mr.
for all
President, that we give all employees a $600 stipend across the board.
There's a motion by Mr. Villarreal, is there a second? Second, Mr. Castillo. Any discussion?
Why?
I made a motion that we give every employee a $600 stipend. Mr. Gonzalez making sure that they do something, maybe work an hour or two for that stipend, but the motion is to give every single employee a $600 stipend.
And is there any reason why we can't give the original $1,500 stipend that we requested in the initial agenda?
Because we have air conditioners that don't work. We need tutorials for kids that need learning, and we have to disperse the money equally so kids can benefit, adults can benefit, and the buildings that kids can be comfortable. All the air conditioners. I went to a gym day before yesterday. Gym's not working. I asked the principal, how long has it been since this air conditioner hasn't worked? He said, it's been 3.5 years. I said, it's time we fix these air conditioners up for kids. It's time we go out there and give tutorials and pick up the academic standard, because at the end of the day, our academic standard is, and give something to the people. So at the end of the day, kids benefit, our buildings benefit, and our employees benefit. And that's why I believe what I just said. And I have a motion to that. I have a second.